Happy day students. Welcome to San Academy Group of Schools, Pallikarnai, Grade 9 Chemistry. Today we are going to learn about the first chapter of chemistry, matter in our surroundings. So before entering into the topic, let us have a brief intro about what is chemistry. Chemistry is actually a branch of science which exclusively deals with composition, structure and properties of matter and the changes these matters undergo under various conditions and the laws which are governing them. So now let us get into the topic. So what is this matter and why we should know about this matter? So as just now we saw, chemistry is something which is going to deal with the composition, structure and properties of matter. So in order to learn chemistry, it's very much essential for us to know all the term what we mean by matter. So what is matter? Matter is anything that occupies space and has mass. If you just look into your immediate surroundings, you can observe that extremely small portion and to the exclusively bigger portion, everything is made up of matter. For example, we see large number of things of different sizes, shapes, appearance and texture. Everything in this universe is made up of material which is in scientific term called as matter. Even the air we breathe, the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the house where we live in, the paper on which we write, the ink with which we write, everything is nothing but matter. So we can say, or we can put it in a nutshell, that the entire universe is made up of matter. So this matter can be defined as anything that occupies space and has mass and the presence of which can be felt by either one or all the five of our senses. So, on the basis of physical state, the matters are generally classified as solids, liquids and gases. So, on what basis they have classified matters? Broadly, the matters are classified as physical and chemical classification. And physical classification is solids, liquids and gases. And what about chemical classification? On the basis of chemical composition, matters can be classified as pure substance and mixtures, where pure substance are either elements or compounds, whereas mixtures may be homogeneous or heterogeneous. So now let us discuss about the particulate nature of matter. So the particulate nature means the matter is made up of very small particles and these particles are either atom, molecule or ion. Actually, for a very long time, there were two views about the nature of matter, where some scientists believed that matter was continuous like a block of wood or sheet of glass, whereas others believed that matter was made up of particles like that of sand. To understand whether the matter is continuous or particulate in nature, you can just do a small activity. Hold a sheet of glass in your hand. It appears continuous, right? Now throw it on the floor. What will you see? You can see that it is breaking down into so many pieces. And this shows that matter is not a continuous, but it is made up of small particles. And in fact, all matter in this universe is made up of small particles. In other words, everything around us is made up of small particles. For example, our earth, ocean, mountain, sun, moon, etc. etc. So these particles which make up all the matter around us are either atoms or molecules or ions. However, these particles differ from one kind of matter to another. And how small these particles are? You want to know, right? So, to know how small these particles are, we can do a small activity. And before that, let us have a brief discussion about the properties associated with particulate nature of matter. So, the particles of matter have space between them and the particles of matter are continuously moving and these particles of matter also attract each other and these are the properties associated with particulate nature of matter. So now let us perform an activity to prove that particles of matter have space between them. So what you're going to do is take some water in a beaker and note its level. Then dissolve some salt or sugar in it with the help of a glass rod. And the salt dissolves in water, but the level of water does not change What does it mean? This means that there was space in between the particles that were making up the water, and the dissolved salt or sugar has occupied those spaces, and this is because of what? The level of the water has not increased. So this is because the particle of salt get into the space between the particles of water. So as you can see over here, you can take a beaker of water and dissolve sugar into this water, and you can see in this picture there are few pink color dots among the blue color, right, which clearly shows that the sugar molecules have occupied the space between the water molecules, and this clearly proves that particles of matter have space between them. In this slide, we are going to perform an activity to prove that particles of matter are continuously moving. So in order to do that, we can do with a very simple available materials in our home or in our own classroom. Just what we need is a container, a glass beaker, and a drop of ink. You all will be having red and blue color ink pens and black color ink pen, right? You can use 1 or 2 drop of that ink. That is more than enough. And when you drop a drop of ink into the beaker of water, you can see that immediately the color of the water changes to the color of the ink. This is because the particles in the ink have started moving inside the water, and they are occupying the space between the water molecules throughout the water which is present in the container until it reaches the equilibrium. And this shows that particles of matter are continuously moving. So the intermixing of 2 or more different type of matter on their own is called diffusion. And this process where 2 or more different type of matter are mixing on their own is called as diffusion. Now let us discuss about an activity to prove that particles of matter attract each other. So take an iron nail, a piece of chalk and a rubber band. Try breaking them by hammering, cutting or stretching. It is easy to break a piece of chalk, less easy to break a rubber band, and most difficult to break an iron nail. This is because the interparticle forces are maximum in iron, and hence we are finding it very difficult to break an iron nail, whereas the interparticle force in a piece of chalk is comparatively low. That's why we can break a chalk very easily, whereas it's less easy to break a rubber band because the interparticle force in a rubber band is going to be comparatively more than that is found in a piece of chalk, and comparatively less than that is found in a piece of iron. So it is only this interparticle force which is helping us to maintain the shape and the rigidity of the matter. So now let us discuss about the 3 states of matter. So matter exists in 3 different states, which are solid, liquid and gases. So first we are going to discuss about properties of. In solids, the constituent particles are very closely packed, and hence the interparticulate force are strongest. These forces are strong enough to hold the constituent particles together, as you can see in this figure. That is why solids have a definite volume or fixed volume, and further, since the particles are very closely packed, that is, spacing between the constituent particle is extremely small. Therefore, they cannot be compressed, or we can say that they cannot be squashed. In other words, solid possess high rigidity and have high density. Apart from that, it also has a fixed shape. And due to strong interparticle force of attraction, the constituent particles of solid have no freedom of motion except that they keep on vibrating around their mean position. So solids have definite shape and volume, and the space between the particle is very minimum, and that is what is giving the solid a good rigidity. And the force of attraction between the particles, that is interparticle force of attraction, is maximum, and the movement of particles is minimum, and they only vibrate at their mean position, and they are least compressible, because since the space between the particle is very less, they cannot be compressed anymore, and their rate of diffusion is also very low. Whereas in case of liquids, the particles are less closely packed. Hence, the interparticle force of attraction are not as strong as those in solid. These forces are, however, still strong enough to keep the particles together, but not strong enough to keep them in fixed position. Hence, they do not have a fixed shape. As the particles cannot remain in fixed position, that is the reason why liquids have the property to flow. And that is the reason why we call the liquids as fluid also, because they can flow. Further, the interparticle force keep the particles together. Liquid have a definite volume. Also, as the interparticle force are not very strong, the particles of liquid have greater freedom to movement. Thus, particles of liquid have some translational and rotational motion in addition to vibrational motion. Due to large interparticle distance, liquid have lower densities than solids. So, liquids, they are not rigid, they don't have any fixed shape, and but do they have fixed volume, and they cannot be squashed or compressed. So, the shape of, and when they don't have the shape, definite shape, then what shape do they take? They take the shape of the container, and the space between the particle is more than the solid and lesser than the gases, and the force of attraction between the particle is less than solid and more than gases, and the movement of particle is intermediate. That is, we can see a certain extent of translational and rotational motion. Now coming to the properties of gases. In case of gas, they have no definite shape or fixed volume. And the reason for this is the interparticle space are very large, and hence the interparticle force are the weakest. Thus the particles of gas are completely free to move about in whole space available to them. As a result, they have neither definite shape nor fixed volume. And the volume of gas in fact is equal to the volume of the container. Because of very weak interparticle force, they have significant translational, rotational and vibrational motion. That is, their movement of the particles in case of gaseous state is maximum. And this, as we discussed just now, the space between the particle is also maximum, whereas the force of attraction between the particle is minimum, as a result of which these particles can move at a maximum rate. And since there is more amounts of space between the particles, they are highly compressible, that is, can be squashed. The rate of diffusion is more than solid and liquid, which means gases diffuse very fastly or at a higher rate compared with solids and liquids. Now let us discuss a little about what is a melting point. We all know that when a solid is heated, the particle begin to vibrate, as a result of which they can move more freely. That is the reason why substance generally expand on heating. So when it is happening, there will be a fixed temperature at which the solid will be getting converted into liquid, and this process is called melting or fusion, and the temperature at which the solid melt is called its melting point. Generally, the melting point of ice is 0 degree Celsius or 273 Kelvin. So then what is latent heat of fusion? So the amount of heat energy required to change 1 kilogram of a solid into liquid at atmospheric pressure at its melting point is called latent heat of fusion. So let me repeat it for you. Latent heat of fusion is nothing but the amount of heat energy which is required to convert 1 kilogram of solid into liquid, under which condition, under the atmospheric pressure at its melting point, is called as latent heat of fusion. Now, when we measure the melting point, the tip of the thermometer must be placed in water enclosed between ice particles. This ensures that melting point of state with high kinetic energy is observed. So whenever we are going to measure the melting point, we have to make sure, as you can see in this figure, the thermometer is placed in the water. That is, the bulb is dipped inside the water, but you can see on both the sides ice cubes. This gives the melting point of state with high kinetic energy. Coming to boiling point. So when liquid is heated, its particles begin to move faster, and at a particular temperature, liquids begin to boil and change into gas or vapor. So boiling is a bulk phenomena as either volume of liquid boils at once or changes into vapor. So the temperature at which a liquid starts boiling is called its boiling point. And the boiling point of water is 100 degrees Celsius or 373 Kelvin, that is 273 plus 100. Now let us discuss about what is latent heat of vaporization. So the amount of heat energy required to change 1 kilogram of liquid into gas at atmospheric pressure at its boiling point is called latent heat of vaporization. Now, when we are going to measure the boiling point, the tip of the thermometer must be placed just above the surface of boiling water. And we should make sure that the tip of the thermometer is not touching the vessel. So now let us discuss about the effect of pressure on gases. Whenever we apply pressure on gases, the interparticle forces increases, as a result of which the space between the particles will reduce and the particles are going to come closer to each other, which will be almost like the arrangement of particles in a liquid, as a result of which the gas changes into liquid. Hence, we can liquefy gas by applying pressure and decreasing the temperature. So, compressed solid carbon dioxide is called dry ice. If the pressure is reduced, it changes directly to gas without coming into liquid state. So, solid carbon dioxide is known as dry ice. So, now let us discuss about interconversion of three states of matter. The state of matter can be changed by changing the temperature or pressure. So, when the solid is changing into liquid on heating, we call it as fusion. And when the liquid is getting converted into gas, we call it as vaporization. And when the gas is getting converted into solid again, we call it as sublimation. The same way, when the gas is getting converted into liquid on cooling, we call it as condensation, and liquid to solid on cooling, we call it as solidification, and solid to gas on cooling, we call it as sublimation. Now, let us discuss about few of the separation techniques. So, these techniques are generally used to separate components of mixtures on basis of variation in the physical properties like boiling point, melting point, and solubility, etc. So, first process is sublimation. Sublimation is the process where the solid changes completely to gas without entering into the interface of liquid. So the change of state directly from solid to gas or from gas to solid is called sublimation. For example, if a solid camphor or an ammonium chloride is heated, it changes into vapor. If vapors are cooled, it changes into solid. Now let us discuss about evaporation. So evaporation is a process where the liquid is converted into vapor at any temperature, but it should be below the boiling point. And that process is called as evaporation. And this evaporation is generally a surface phenomena where particles at the surface of the liquid absorb enough energy to overcome the force of attraction. And that is the latent heat of evaporation, and it changes to vapor state. So the various factors affecting the evaporation are: the rate of evaporation mainly depends upon the surface area, temperature, humidity, and wind speed. Increase in surface area increases the rate of evaporation, so that the water gets exposed more if the surface area is going to be very high, and hence the rate of evaporation can be increased. Increase in temperature increases the rate of evaporation. When the temperature increases, we know the particles start vibrating more and they can move even more freely. And when the particles are very loosely packed, it reaches the gaseous state. Increase in humidity decreases the rate of evaporation. See, increase in humidity generally occurs when there is more amount of moisture in the atmosphere, as a result of which the temperature will not be high and the particles cannot move, or they will not vibrate at a very high rate, and hence it results in decrease in the rate of evaporation. Increase in wind speed increases the rate of evaporation, because when we have a good wind, what happens is the surface, the particles can be easily carried away by the wind which is on the surface, because already they are having a good amount of energy to overcome the interparticle force of attraction, and hence increase in wind speed increases the rate of evaporation. So now let us discuss an interesting effect of evaporation, that is evaporation and its cooling effect. So when a liquid evaporates, the particle of liquid absorb heat from the surrounding and evaporates. As a result, the surrounding becomes cold. So for example, when the liquid has to evaporate, which is on the surface, it has to utilize the heat energy from its surrounding. So automatically what happens? The temperature in the surrounding is reducing, and that results in making the surrounding cold. For example, people sprinkle water on the roof or open ground because during evaporation, water absorbs heat from the surface, which makes the hot surface cool. Similarly, during summer, we perspire more as sweat absorbs heat from our body, making the body cool. Wearing cotton clothes in summer keeps us cool because cotton absorbs sweat, and when the sweat evaporates, it absorbs heat from our body, thus making the body cool. And deserts cooler works better on a hot and dry days, as evaporation is more in such conditions. Thank you, students.